Before having my divine experiences, I had never met Sri Sathya Sai Baba. And at that time, I heard the name, it registered, but I did not know who Sathya Sai Baba was. And at that time, I could not care less. One day, I went for my hairdo, wanted to get a perm. I wanted curly hair. And the hairdresser gave me a very tight perm, and it came out very, very tight, wrinkly. And I came home, and I liked it actually. I thought it was cool. And when I came home, I said to my mom, how does it look? How does it look? And she says, what did you do? You look like Sathya Sai Baba. Sooner or later, we are going to feel the need for God's love, mercy, and protection. We all do. The ones who know Swami well, that he, with the wave of his hand, he can materialize vibhuti and all sorts of things, But that is in his presence, right? We are 10,000 miles away. In my home in Midland, Michigan, we started seeing material objects appearing, right? But till the silence is practiced at the mental level, that physical silence alone is not going to be sufficient. I'm not saying it's not needed, but it may not be sufficient. Swami says, don't fritter away your energy in unnecessary talks and all that. Not that he's opposed to talking. I'm talking, we are talking, right? He's not opposed to talking, but unnecessary talk drains you of energy. It allows that inner dialogue going on in your mind so much that you will not be able to observe that complete silence where you can hear God. He says, there's a difference between virtues and just good qualities. He says, virtues are when those qualities become your second nature, that under all adverse circumstances, your natural disposition is to act that way. That's when you can claim that you have the virtues. Just knowing about these qualities and saying, yeah, I know this, that doesn't count. Foolishly, I go sit down in meditation next day morning, and I'm supposed to do 21 times, right? So I'm going, Nada Brahma, Nada Brahma, Nada Brahma. When Swami says Shivangini, and I heard it, but I'm going, I have to do 21 times Nada Brahma 8, Nada Brahma 9.
Don't interrupt me.
And Swami, let me go up to the Nada Brahma 11th perhaps, and then with a little bit irritated note, he says, stop. And then he explains, he says, people do all these practices so that they can connect to the divine. They can have communion. Here I'm talking to you and you're going Nada Brahma, Nada Brahma.
Welcome to part 2 of a special 5-part series on the making of a yogini. Before her death on September 3, 2005, Shivangini Baile of Midland, Michigan had reached the level of Jivanmukta, uninterrupted self-realization for the rest of her life. Her constant guide and advisor was holy man Sri Sathya Sai Baba of India, whom she had never met personally. In part 1, her husband Gyani Baile began the story of Shivangini's profound, unrequested, unexpected spiritual transformation which occurred during the last 7 years of her life. In part 2, Shivangini's own words about her lessons learned recorded a year before she left her body. Welcome to Souljourns. This talk was recorded in Pepper Pike, Ohio on August 14, 2004.
I'm here to share the experiences that Ted alluded to. And the reason I do that, because me and my family, ourselves are so much fascinated and impressed by them that we are anxious to share with anybody who cares to hear. That's the sole purpose of sharing. See, like a child who has a yearning, a longing for its mother. No matter how engrossed the child might be in playing with toys, sometime or other, either due to hunger, thirst, fear, or any other reason, it's going to cry. It's bound to cry and run up to its mother, towards its lap. Same way, entire humanity, all mankind, have this innate yearning, longing for the divine, for its creator, the mother, the father, who we call God. Though we also may be engrossed in our worldly place, worldly life, materialistic or material toys, whatever you want to call it, and too busy with our worldly life, but sometime or other in our life, sooner or later, we are going to feel the need for God's love, mercy, and protection. This innate yearning, the longing for God, has taken the expression of religion in different societies, different communities, in different eras. And that expression has created all these different religions, the different faiths. And every religion has a different concept of who God is. To some, God is formless. To some, God is formful. In the formful, we have the examples, not just in one religion. Look at every religion. We have Prophet Muhammad, we have Jesus, we have Buddha, we have Rama, we have Krishna, we have Sai. Okay? We have these excellences in mankind who we have in Hindu religion, they have called it avatars, God incarnates. Okay? We call Jesus God incarnate. These God incarnates, when they come on earth, they move mountains, they uplift the entire society. They do so much good that many of us feel like worshipping them. We feel like being closer to them. This innate yearning does two things in the human beings. It wants us to first recognize that divinity is all-knowing, all-pervasive, all-powerful, omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient. Divinity is something to connect to. When we do, that's when we get our deepest joy, peace, bliss, harmony in life. Now, before I start sharing with you some of the experiences that I had with Swami, that avatar or God incarnate, I must share with you some background also. Before having my divine experiences, I had never met Shri Satya Sai Baba. I had never saw him. I had never even heard of his name except at two occasions. One occasion I heard his name, and one occasion I saw his picture. Okay, and let me share how that went. It was about 20 years back. I was young, into fashions and all that. One day, I went for my hairdo. Wanted to get a perm. I wanted curly hair. And the hairdresser gave me a very tight perm, and it came out very, very, very tight, wrinkly. And I came home, and I liked it actually. I thought it was cool. And when I came home, I said to my mom, how does it look? How does it look? And she says, "What did you do? You look like Satya Sai Baba." and and at that time, I heard the name, it registered, but I did not know who Satya Sai Baba was. And at that time, I could not care less. I said, "She doesn't like my hair, do I like it?" I was rather upset with her. I couldn't care less, who Satya Sai Baba was at that time. Next occasion was, Swami, forgive us. About 10 years back, a friend of ours who was a Sai devotee, and she invited us to her house for dinner, which, she treated us as party-going people who really won't come for bhajans or things like that. But she said, "I'm gonna have dinner after bhajans. If you feel like, come little early and hear few bhajans and then we'll have dinner." No problem. We were there. So we reached a little early while they were doing their bhajans. We heard the bhajans, saw the picture. There was a huge picture, much, I would say about 3 times the size of this picture in their, where they were holding the bhajans. I can't say I was drawn to the picture in any particular way, but anywhere I turned, I felt that the eyes in that picture was just chasing me. I mean, as if somebody is staring me constantly. Since it was a picture, I couldn't tell them, "Stop staring at me." But if it was a human, I might have said that. But just felt like just constantly staring. But I shrugged it, nothing. And that was that. Those are the 2 occasions when I got exposure to Swami. Then 7-8 years back, 1997, when suddenly I started having all sorts of, a series of divine or holy dreams, visions, miracles of the type, the ones who know Swami well, that he, with the wave of his hand, he can materialize vibhuti and all sorts of things, But that is in his presence, right? We are 10,000 miles away. In my home in Midland, Michigan, we started seeing material objects appearing, right? And initially when it happened, it was not just 1 or 2 things, a series. One time we had these 3 books sitting on our bookshelf. And one day, I find this matchstick in our tiny little shrine I have. You have seen that now, right? And in there I used to light incense in front of God before going to work and all that every day. That was my very simple discipline. And the matchsticks were empty, that matchbox was empty. There was no matchstick for me to light the incense that day. And suddenly this big, about unusually big matchstick with a silver tip appeared, which allowed me to light the incense. And those kind of things, one after another. Then he will sometimes give me a dream, and holy dreams were, seeing gods and goddesses. Some I'm exposed to, coming from, India with my little, whatever background, whatever deities I'm exposed to, I am, right? But there were some which I have no exposure to, like the cosmic dance of Lord Shiva. I didn't even know there was something like that existed. And those kind of things you see in the dream. And also saw some, a wide variety of things, but some dreams which seemed like from a place which I can't relate to. I've never been to those kind of places, and they look very heavenly, if you want to call them. And that was not that. Sometimes I was having these visions in the daytime while driving to work. Here in the sky, I see a portion of the dream which I had last night formed with the clouds. it's forming the same kind of mountain, and the light is filtering through it, just the sunlight, and giving the appearance of a waterfall, which I had seen in the dream last night. I mean, those kind of funny things. Dream is one thing, but having this kind of connection next day was another thing. And on top of that, I started hearing this voice inside, which explains to me, oh, this is this, this is that, oh, what you saw yesterday was actually Sri Veda Vyasa, the guy who codified the most ancient scriptures, the Vedas. This is the man who did that, and I saw him in the dream, and when I'm seeing his same picture in the cloud, I'm being told, this is Veda Vyasa. I see. So those are the kind of things which were very, very mind-boggling. You can imagine if something like that happens to anybody. It sounds good now in the hindsight, but at that time, I was scared. I thought, I'm going crazy. I'm seeing things. I didn't want to tell many people, but somehow God was kind enough. And I'm very, very, very thankful to Swami for giving me the kind of husband who didn't put me in the mental hospital. He was with me. I won't share those experiences with everybody, but I never hesitated to share it with him. And he was kind enough to listen. Initially, when the stories were short, I would verbally tell him, both of us had to go to work in the morning, and while sipping on tea or something, I will just talk and tell him what all happened. And then when the volume of information kept increasing, we started tape recorder. He said, I can't keep up with this, you just record, otherwise we'll forget. And then came a time when Swami said, I will tell you how he said to record, write it down in the form of a book. So poor guy took those tape recorders and started, taking it onto the computer. So that's the process we went through. And I'm so glad that we did that. That's the reason why we have that book, Inner Experiences. That's the first 2 years of experiences. Every day something or other is happening, and we are writing or recording and stuff like that while pursuing our careers. I think that is more of a miracle, that you go through these experiences, you are writing a book about it, at the same time pursuing your job, and at the same time traveling on business trips and this and everything going on. I had 2 younger children at that time. Now they are 18 and 20, but at that time they were 12 and 14, It was quite a bit of load, and yet everything kept getting done. Nothing missed a beat. So what I was saying, that those initial visions and miracles were the mechanism he used to educate me, to transform me. The first thing he asked in a dream was, I want $17. And those $17 later turned out were 17 specific virtues he wanted me to cultivate. And I know I'm not trying to teach language here, but you know what virtues really mean? He told me that not having lower tendencies like hatred, anger, jealousy, pride, too many desires, and all these are bad on the path of spirituality. But the good qualities are love, truth, peace, non-violence, righteousness, all those. But he says those are good qualities. He says there's a difference between virtues and just good qualities. He says virtues are when those qualities become your second nature, that under all adverse circumstances, your natural disposition is to act that way. That's when you can claim that you have the virtues. Just knowing about these qualities and saying, yeah, I know this, that doesn't count. So he wanted me to cultivate virtues. And then he, started imparting some of the, I won't say all, but gist of the knowledge that is in the Vedas and Upanishads. These are the most ancient scriptures around today. And through that, what he was teaching, who are you? What is your reality? You are divine. Your true nature is peace, bliss. You are not this body. You are not this mind. You are the eternal soul. And this nature is transient. Everything in the nature is transient. Your relations, your possessions, your jobs, your positions, your power, your money, everything is transient. Everything is going to go one day or other. Nothing you're going to be able to take it with you. Then he was telling me, who's God? God is eternal. And he's saying that your relationship with God is eternal. Not mine alone. We all, human beings. He says, you all have heart-to-heart connection with me. And we all have an eternal relationship. But your relationships that we cherish the most, our husbands and wives and children and parents and like all worldly relationships, he says he doesn't ask us to leave them all and just stay connected thinking of him only. He says, through them, through your relationships, you can connect to him. So when God gives us a human life, that is the only life when it is possible to realize divinity, your own divinity, and connect to God. And in Vedas and Upanishads, there are methods and modes dictated which tell you how to lead a life full of peace, happiness, here and hereafter. And if you are even more ambitious and want to be with the divine eternally, then there are ways how to achieve nirvana, moksha, emancipation, salvation. There are modes and methods for that too. So, these kind of things he elaborated. And how he did it? He taught me meditation. He says, I hope I'm not, if you don't understand, please stop me, okay? Because I get carried away with, to me, I'm very close to it, so to me, he says you have physical consciousness, mental consciousness, and you have absolute consciousness. Physical consciousness, we all are very aware. Mental consciousness, he says, has 6 levels in it. And those 6 levels is what you explore when you go into meditation. And the highest, the 7th one, is the absolute consciousness. When you transcend the mental consciousness to the highest level, that is the absolute consciousness. So he taught me meditation through by talking to me. Initially when he was talking, when I say talking, just imagine, person is not there, but I'm hearing his thoughts. It's a thought-to-thought kind of conversation inside. And I will share something with you. It's embarrassing for me, but it will be funny for you. Let me share this. Initially, one day he told me in my thought, when he was teaching meditation, he says, before starting meditation, do pranava mantra 21 times. And then his ways are wonderful, like he would give me one sentence like that, and then he would lead me to a book. Actually, he led me to one of his books, Sathya Sai Speaks, where on that specific page which he said, there was this explanation of Pranava mantra. But the way it was explained, it talked a lot about what is Om. He explained that the Om is the primeval sound, and that sound, all other languages and sounds are actually a modification of that basic sound, A-U-M. It's normally written O-M, but actually it's A-U-M, Om. And he said those are the three, that sound is the primeval sound, and everything else is a modification of that. And in the book it's describing the sound and this and that, but along the way it came across, so the Pranava mantra, but not connecting the Om to the Pranava mantra. All it's a jump to the Pranava mantra. And in the parentheses it said N-A-D-A, which I pronounced in my head Nada, which actually is supposed to be Nad. Nad means sound in Sanskrit language, but I read it Nada. And then the next word was Brahma. So what it meant, it's the Nad of Brahma, sound of Brahma, which means sound of God. Okay, it's a sound symbol. Om is the sound symbol of God. That's what that book was telling me. So since I read it Nada Brahma, foolishly, I go sit down in meditation next day morning, and I'm supposed to do 21 times, right? So I'm going Nada Brahma, Nada Brahma, Nada Brahma, Nada. Okay, I was on to my 7th Nada Brahma when Swami says Shivangini. And I heard it, but I'm going, I have to do 21 times Nada Brahma 8, Nada Brahma 9.
Don't interrupt me.
And Swami, let me go up to the Nada Brahma 11th perhaps, and then with a little bit irritated note, he says, stop. And then he explains, he says, people do all these practices so that they can connect to the divine. They can have communion. Here I'm talking to you and you're going Nada Brahma, Nada Brahma. That was truly, it's very embarrassing, but I didn't know any better. And he's kind enough.
Yeah.
In his kindness, believe me, now when I think about it, it brings tears into my eyes, that he never told me that I was stupid, that I was doing Nada Brahma. He never told me. It took me about a couple of weeks when I was sharing with this thing with a friend, that's what Baba said. She says, what is this Nada Brahma? And that's how we figured out that I'm supposed to say Om.
Om.
And then I got mad at, inside. I said, this is not fair. I told Baba, I said, why didn't you correct me if I was saying it wrong? And you know what he answered? He says, what God values, devotion, discipline, determination, and the love we show and what we do, he says skill and efficiency is the least of his concern. And he gives the example. He says, a 1-year-old child comes up to the dad and says, just wants to be picked up, stretches the arm and says, Dada. Do you think the father is gonna scold him and first teach him how, learn to say daddy before I give you a hug? No. Dad is gonna pick up the child, give a nice hug and a kiss, because the parent knows, the father knows that when he turns 2 years old, 3 years old, he will not call him Dada anymore. And then he says, Shivangini, you are a baby then. If you would say that now, yes, he will correct. He will correct big time. So I think God is kind. In his kindness, he will even put up with a lot of our idiosyncrasies which he has. But I think at this point we need to ask, why is he imparting all this knowledge? Why is he educating? What does he want from all these miracles? He says that he has heart-to-heart connection with everybody. Then why does he not do it with every individual? Why does he have to educate people? Why does he have to do that? He says he has as many ways of connecting to the people as or more than the number of people exist. So he can connect to each one of us in many, many, many different ways. He's doing all these things to transform us, each one of us, in any way that we can. He's doing it because we all have different combination of those gunas, those qualities in us. We are entangled in the world in different ways, in different degrees. He cannot, if he has this, when God descends on earth, he has not done it just for a little small scale lila, it's a big scale lila. So he has to throw carrots at some who are not paying attention. So some of this was my carrot to get me attracted. And once I got attracted, then he started teaching. Then he started coaching, teaching and all that. And then again he says, we all can have this kind of experience. And what he does, he exemplifies very ordinary people like ourselves, so that the rest of us can get motivated, can develop the faith that if it can happen to very ordinary people, it can happen to each one of us. That's what he wants. Otherwise, why would he just spend his time doing this for few individuals? So that we go and talk and tell people, and you say, oh, they look pretty odd. If it can happen to them, it can happen to me, right? And it does. And his purpose is really to let us all know that it can happen and let us get motivated. He says, don't waste time. Human life is very precious. This is the only life when you are going to have the chance to realize God. So do it now. If you get inspired and motivated by what I'm saying, he accomplished his task. Okay? We need to be Godwards. We need to know how we can connect to him. We need to cultivate those virtues. Of course, there are some prerequisites, some pre-qualifications. Why wouldn't he talk to me 20 years back? Why he chose now? Why is he talking to me and not to another person? Or, those kind of questions we can ask, because there are certain things which we have to have in order to receive what he wants us to have. And those qualifications are not that difficult really, but sometimes they're hard to come by. I will comment on those if you're interested, but let me share one other embarrassing story. How he made sure that, earlier I was telling you that initially when these kind of experiences happen, there is a downside to it, that you start thinking, have I gone crazy? People think of you as crazy and that kind of problem. But then when you evolve a little bit on the path, then you know what happens? You are very assured. Oh, no problem, I'm not crazy. I know what I'm doing. And somewhere subtly, ego is a very terrible thing, Sometimes you might just think, oh, I must feel good that God chose me, right? I'm special. I'm better than you, right? Heck no. No. Nobody is better. And this lesson, how he taught me, I will share with you. And please promise that you will not keep reminding me of this later.
Shivangini, sorry.
Are you okay?
I'm sorry.
Oh, there's a light fixture. Is it okay? It's
Okay.
fine. Your chair is just between.
I was trying to get out of the way.
What happened?
Okay. Sorry.
What happened is Swami was showing me this light every day. As did I comment on this? You know, like when we do meditation, in the meditation there are different levels of consciousness. Did I mention 6 of those, right? Every level is associated with sound and color or light. So he was exposing me to those different levels of colors and sound. Sound meaning what I hear, what I don't. There are different things that happen at different levels of consciousness, right? Generally, I will comment on that later if you are in the details. Okay. You know, initially when those things were happening, Gyani would joke around and refer to my experiences. Oh, here is the sound and light show. And one day, there was no sound and light show. No sound, no Swami not talking. Day passed, second day, third day, fourth day. I was getting desperate. I mean, by that time, I was so attached to this phenomena. That was my love, that was my treasure. I would not want to let go of that under any circumstances. And you know, like how we grow up thinking, oh, somebody did something, or something bad happened, some evil thing happened. Why I stopped listening to all those messages and something went wrong. And Baba just will not talk. One more week, okay, 2 weeks gone past. On the 14th day or so, you know, he leads me without even telling me, I mean, not talking and leading me, but just arbitrarily, I find myself opening a book. On that particular page, it says, you know, it was written that when a spiritual aspirant progresses fast, even the guards get jealous and throw obstacles on its path. First reaction was, guards get jealous? What kind of guards are these? They get jealous too?
Yeah.
Okay. But fine. Books, there are a variety of books. A lot of things are written there. And it's how we interpret is the key. Not that they're wrong or right. Our interpretation is the key, which tells whether it's right or wrong. That day, in the evening, after dinner, I was doing dishes. And while doing dishes, just that same thought was crossing my mind. I said, guards get jealous. Huh? So maybe I was progressing too fast. Maybe guards got jealous. That's exactly what must have happened. And right at that minute, Swami breaks his 2 weeks long silence. Yes, Shivangini, so far you have absolutely nothing for guards to get jealous of. Oh man, did I go like this, you know? He punctured my ego pretty good. And at that I said, he's mean. That's Swami. I mean, when I call him inner guru, I mean it. You know, like a true teacher who will not let you make too many mistakes. If it's a good teacher, he will teach you all the tactics and techniques and tricks. He will. And that's what Swami does. When he decides to teach you, he is going to teach you big time. So all these things that he teaches are for our own good. He wants us to transform transformed to the degree that we become worthy of what He has come to offer. He says He cannot hand us a treasure which He says is ours to keep. But He cannot hand it to us till we are ready. It's like a child. You might be king, may have great inheritance to pass on to the child, but if the child is only 5-year-old, you can't hand him. Sorry. The child has to mature, is to grow up. And once the child grows up, you will gladly give his inheritance to him. You're not going to take it with you when you die, right? In God's case, that part doesn't apply. This is our eternal treasure, the divinity that we are higher self. We should work towards it, get our share. You tell me how much more you want to hear, and I can keep.
Keep going.
Keep going.
Maybe take a few questions.
Yeah, whenever you want. Few questions now, or
10 or 15 minutes of your stories, then we'll take some questions.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. All right. So, what does Swami really wants from each one of us? He wants us to be virtuous. He wants us to be good. He wants this goodness at individual level, at family level, at national level, at humanity level. He doesn't want us to just be good, like I had all the experience now, fine, why am I going to tell you? No, share. The light, the flame, you can light many more candles with one candle. It only grows. It's not going to diminish. Like that, divine glory, when shared, it only grows. It's going to light the spark in other hearts too. In that spirit, we share. He wants us to share. He wants us to have minimal desires. He says, just any desires. He says, desires are the cause for our frustrations, our unhappiness, our anger, our attachment, and everything else. Just imagine, if you have a desire to do something and anybody who comes in your way, you don't like the person. You have a desire to have something, you will go out of your way, by hook or crook, you will achieve it, right? So desires are the cause of making us non-virtuous also. He says, put a ceiling on desire. That is Swami's slogan. Put a ceiling on desires. Then he says, by eliminating desires, you will achieve a degree of peace, a calmness of mind. And that calmness of mind is going to allow you to control your mind. And when we control our mind, just imagine, even in our daily activities, if we want to do even our homework, children, where do they go? You want to do your homework or do any project, you need utmost concentration, control of mind. If your mind keeps wandering, you're not going to be able to achieve anything. So if you want to hear the divine whispers, you have to have complete control on mind and complete silence in the mind, at the heart level. If you have too many agitations, thoughts constantly, inner dialogue going on constantly, you will not be able to hear God's voice. That will come in the way. Swami says, the whispers of the divine can be heard only at the depth of in the depth of the silence. So that silence is what is going to allow us to hear him. So we cultivate calmness, peace of mind, not much inner dialogue. Some people resort to, like I think some of you might be able to relate to that. Manavratam, right? Which means, they practice physical silence. I'm not talking, I'm just observing silence so that I train my mind to become silent. But till the silence is practiced at the mental level, that physical silence alone is not going to be sufficient. I'm not saying it's not needed, but it may not be sufficient. Swami says, don't fritter away your energy in unnecessary talks and all that. Not that he's opposed to talking. I'm talking, we are talking, right? He's not opposed to talking, but unnecessary talk drains you of energy. It allows that inner dialogue going on in your mind so much that you will not be able to observe that complete silence where you can hear God. Then he wants us to have the spiritual disciplines. He says based on the temperament of the people are going to resort to different modes and methods of practices. I was mentioning earlier, different religions have different names of God, different understanding of God. But within every community, society, every religion, you will find thieves and murderers all the way up to saints and mystics. People with different temperaments, right? So people of different temperaments are going to resort to different practices. They are going to interpret their own religion differently. A saint is not going to look at the religion the way a thief or murderer looks. So there are going to be different practices. But Swami says, practice. He jokingly, in a book it's written, he has not told me this, but in a book it's written that when the thief goes for his job, he prays to me just the way a police officer who is going to catch the thief, he prays to me. He says both have to, they are connected but in their own different ways. The non-virtuous person is doing non-virtuous acts and still wanting God's help, right? He wants help too. We all need divine help. So he says, you can all connect, but if you want, as we mature, as we grow, we have to be careful what we ask of God, because very likely He might give it. He will give it to you what you ask for. But you may not be knowing what is good for you. So we have to be careful in our prayers too. But by same token, you must be Godward. But even the one who is walking is going to make it. Sooner or later, it's a matter of delay, it's a matter of time. But we all will make it. Let's not just be wasting our precious human life and not make the effort outwards. That's the key. Some of the other things I told you, in like how he wants us to be virtuous. Same way, he does not want us, well, that is something, virtues you cultivate, right? He says there are some inherent things in you. I have given you that. It's not that you have to get it from outside. He says you all have been endowed with a supreme, unlimited, divine energy called love. He says, I've given to you all. Even a newborn baby responds to love. That energy is there, even in a child. It's in each one of us. And if you look at what Swami does, what does he do? He's doing these miracles, bringing one dead back to life. How is he doing it? Why is he doing it? All his steps towards humanity are filled with love. His miracles are for love. He is playing all these pranks with us at home, materializing all these goodies, I showed you, right? I put them in my shop. This
Cups of sea.
sorry, Ted. Okay. All these things that he's materializing, all these pranks that he's playing, because he loves us. He's curing people of cancer and all those deadly diseases. It's his love. If he has opened all these hospitals where he gives free treatment to people, it's his love. If he has opened these schools and universities where free education is being imparted, it's his love. If he gives water to those drought villages, 750 of those, whatever, it's his love. All actions of God are infused with love. You sing bhajans, right? Love is my form. That's what Swami sings. That's what he says about himself. About us, he says, how should I say it? You guys know Prema Sarupalara, which means embodiments of love. He addresses us as embodiment of love, calls himself as love is my form, and all his acts are infused and suffused with love. And he wants us to cultivate that love. And he says, you don't need to cultivate. It's there. Just make it come out. And when you do not have those lower tendencies like anger, jealousy, hatred, those are the ones, or the pride, those are the ones which are going to come in your way of expressing that love. So you see the seesaw effect here, right? Or you have too many of those bad qualities, and this fight goes up. And when you cultivate this fight, so you have to keep balancing till you strive what he calls equanimity. When it becomes equanimous in all areas, this equanimity is not just something that, no, I'm a dead person, no reaction to anything. That's not equanimity. Equanimity is a balance. He says balance. Balance everything. And when you have that balance, there is stillness. In that stillness, there is God's whisper. We have to express our love more and more and more. Share it more and more and more. Swami is not here wanting anybody to change their faith. All he says, that if you are a Hindu, become a better Hindu. If you are a Muslim, become a better Muslim. If you are a Christian, become a better Christian. He says there is only one religion of love. There is only one language of heart. There is only one race of humanity. And there is only one God, and he is omnipresent. We have to, if we go by his teachings, he is not asking much from us, honestly. Whatever he has given us, he's saying, just use it. I've given you enough love. What's your problem? Why don't you guys share with each other? Why do you dislike each other? Why do you hate each other? Why do you fight with each other? That's all he asking. He asks us to become a better person. And when we meet some of his qualifications as we are progressing on that path, he reveals more and more of himself to us. And he says, start your day with love, spend your day with love, fill your day with love, end your day with love. That is the way to God. Sai Ram.